Hello everyone, and before we jump into today's review, I want to thank you for subscribing. 100 subscribers already, that's awesome. Thank you guys for supporting me. Now, if we can make it 200 subscribers, I'm going to showcase to you what I think are the top 20 board games of all time. So if you want to see that happen, make sure you're subscribed. All right, jumping into the review, today we're looking at Cosmos Empires. This is a game produced in Australia by Bigger Worlds Games. Let's crack it open and take a look. Welcome to Cosmos Empires, where we're building up a card tableau to dominate our opponents. So let's go through the phases of the game and how to play. The first thing I want to show you is the anatomy of a card. So this one over here, the world chip, costs us 6 resources to buy. If you have a look over here, these are our credits. The gray ones are in denominations of 1 and the gold ones are in denominations of 5. This world chip would cost 6 credits to purchase. Down the bottom, you also have a roll value. Rolling a 3 would activate this card, which generates 4 credits. Really, really nice. Now, it's important to note that it's not just us rolling a 3. If our opponents roll a 3 with these 2d4s, then we also get to trigger this ability and gain 4 resources, which is really nice. Now, on our rounds, the first thing we would ordinarily do is roll the dice, and this happens on everyone's turn. On the first round, we skip this phase completely because we have no cards in our tableau. So otherwise, we have 2 actions that we can perform on our turn, and there's 3 options for those actions. The first one being is we can purchase a card from the market. Now let's say I really wanted that world chip. I'm going to purchase that one, and that's going to cost me 6 resources. So I'm going to pay those, and I'm going to replace it with a new one. Okay. Now I have 2 more resources available to me. The discovery costs 2, so I could purchase that one as well. But I'd rather show off the second ability that you could be performing, and that is cycle. So I could remove one of the cards that I don't want from the market, or perhaps I wanted to prevent my opponent from getting one of these cards. I simply discard the card, replace it with a new one, and for my trouble, I also gain 2 resources, which is really nice because sometimes you may not have enough resources to purchase the card you want, and it gives you an ability to get extra resources. Now, let's say my opponent has a turn and they also collect some cards. They buy the Discovery and the Seraph Gate, right? And it's back to my turn, and now we are rolling the dice. Since it's the second round, we start rolling the dice. I roll these dice, and I've gotten an 8, right? Now, this isn't helpful for anyone. Since I have a roll activation of 3, my opponent has a roll activation of 6 and 4, isn't helpful at all. But let's say instead, I rolled a 4. So 2 2s equal a 4. Now, this still isn't helpful to me since I have a roll value of 3. But I can give up an action and change the result of my die roll by adding 1 or adding or taking away 1. So I can change this now to a 3 by giving up one of my actions, and all of a sudden I can get 4 resources, which is really, really handy. One thing to note is that your die rolls will also affect your opponent. So my opponent with this Seraph Gate will also get a resource. We keep going back and forward until one player has accrued 30 total production value in their tableau. This will trigger the final round of the game, whereas the last player to go with the final player card will have their turn, and then we'll see who has the most total production value to see who's the winner. In the event that there's a tie in production values, you'll compare your credits, and whoever has the most then will win. And then if you are tied on credits and on your production value, the player with the last player card is the winner. All right, so you've seen how the game plays. Let's discuss my final thoughts. Now, my opinions of this game, I'm going to break them up over 5 different categories. The first of which is the thematic ties. Do I feel like this game had a theme? No, but it also doesn't really matter. You're not really playing this game for an adventure or a story, anything like that. This is just a really simple, quick engine building game. So the fact that there isn't a thematic tie-in to this game, or a very loose thematic tie-in, doesn't really matter that much. What I will talk about next is the components. Now, component quality, I was quite impressed with. I thought it was pretty good. The card stock of the cards did not feel cheap. They felt quite nice to hold in my hands. The game actually came with sleeves, so you can sleeve the cards if you wanted to. I opted not to do that because it was going to have some issues with the lighting, with all that glare and stuff like that. The dice, they're easy to read. I can't stand when dice have those numbers that also match the color of the dice, and they're very hard to read, but this one was not a problem at all. You could easily read them. I don't prefer to use D4s. I'd rather like D6s and stuff like that, but I understand why they've done it. Otherwise, it could get a bit unwieldy with a lot of different numbers in front of you. So for the game, this is fine. The last thing I want to talk about are the credits that you're using to purchase the cards. These are the small plastic squares that I was using to spend. And look, I think for the price of the game, it is a very modest price. I think that's fine. It is better than cardboard tokens, so I do prefer the plastic, but these don't have a lot of weight to them. They don't feel great to have in your hand, but you know, for the price, still not bad. So overall, components were pretty good. All right, the next thing we're going to be looking at is the gameplay. This is a very quick, easy to get to the table type of game. I dare say it might even be a filler game. You've got a break in between games, you could pull this one out. So the games that I played went for about 30 to 45 minutes, and those were 2-player games. So if you're adding more players in, it could potentially get a bit longer. When you get to the territory of 7 to 8 players, they do have some adjustments to the game to make it shorter. So instead of rushing to 30 production points, you just need 20, and you have more actions on your turn. So I like that they've considered that. And this kind of game, because it is so easy to learn and quick to play, I could see it really lending itself to a lot of players. So I like that that option's available to me. I don't know if I'll ever do it, but it's nice that it's there. Now, one small complaint that I have when it comes to that is the player aid. Now, the player aids have some card clarifications, so some statistics when it comes to how often that roll is going to come up and how the quantity of the cards in the deck. Now, this is really helpful information, but you do only get one of these. So I don't know, it might be worth photocopying it and just having a couple copies around. So something to keep in mind there. Okay, the strategy is interesting in this game. I really like that you can pay an action and deny someone else gaining credits. This happened a few times in my gameplay. So myself and my opponent, we both had cards that triggered on a, say a 6, for example, right? So the 6 would come up on my roll, and I look at my opponent, and he's getting like 5 credits on a 6, and I'm getting like 2 or 3. And then I look over my 7, I've got something on a 7, he doesn't. I'm thinking to myself, I could actually just pay an action, sort of deny him some credits, and still get some for myself. And that's a really awesome thing to consider. Or you might think, well, my actions are really valuable to me, I can't afford to do that. I'd rather spend my actions buying more cards, and that's a really valid choice as well. Another thing that I didn't get into when it comes to the playthrough is these cards have different types of factions or affiliations with them. There are 3 different ones. There are the spirits, there are the mechs, and the bio. And the interesting thing about these cards is they tend to sort of lean into different type of archetypes and strategies. So your bio cards, they tend to you want to have a lot of them to trigger a particular card that gives you more production for having a lot of bio cards. Now the bio cards aren't the best value for money but they sort of factor into that for that strategy, right? And the mechs have a very interesting play style. They get extra actions, but their cards, again, don't have the best efficiency. So you're trading that efficiency in terms of your production values to be able to buy more cards and to cycle more often and stuff like that. So that kind of stuff is really cool. Now, one thing I will mention as we're leading into the replayability is that there are a lot of duplicates of cards in here. And that's fine, because there are cards that sort of lean into that strategy. I want to have duplicates of a card to trigger another card, right? But what you will find is that when you're playing this game, things may get a little bit samey. You might see the same card row from time to time. So you might find that this has a limited sort of time on your shelf. But I also want to add that I've had a little bit of a sneak peek at the expansion. Now, the expansion does two things to my knowledge. It adds in an extra deck. So already you're getting a lot more variation cards, which I really, really like. And I think this game really wants that, okay? But it also adds in a second thing. And I have a few of these cards here because the Kickstarter production added these in as extras. And these are the culture cards. Now, these are really cool. These give you kind of like a player ability, right? So you start with a bunch of cards in your hand and you're looking through and deciding which ones you want to use this game, right? So you have options to you. You might opt to try and combine two that have a lot of synergy or something like that. Or maybe you want to wait till the time's right to sort of see what strategy you want to lean into. So the thing is, you can't use all these cards, right? So you can only use two of them and you have to discard the rest of them. So I really like the fact that you are deciding what sort of strategy you want to go through. You've got options available to you and they act like a player power. So they're active for the rest of the game, most of them anyway. So I really like that, and that is an expansion that I think this game would really benefit from. It really builds up what's available to you, and that replay factor would be really good. So what is my overall score? Well, right now, I think I'm going to give this game a 7 out of 10. It's a good time. I had a really good time playing this game. It does nothing flash or crazy, but it's really fun. I enjoyed it. Now, with the inclusion of that expansion though, I don't know, that might rise that score a little bit more perhaps. But we'll have to wait and see. The expansion is still in production through Kickstarter, I believe. So I'll have some links down below if you are interested in that. All right, well, thank you so much for watching. And if you are interested in seeing more games by Aussie designers, stay tuned because I have a video right over here that you could be clicking on. All right, thanks guys. Have a great one.